What's up, everybody? My name is Gina Theresa.
And I am Matt Galupo.
And you're watching the New York Film Academy's Twitch channel, NYFA Schooled. You're supposed to do that.
Oh, it's my first one. We can take it again.
Yeah. The New York Film Academy's Twitch channel, NYFA Schooled.
Schooled.
Wow, you're bad.
We'll get better.
No, we're not going to do that again. Anyway. Well, we were introing, and he's just blowing it. It's fine.
I don't know what's going on either. It's okay.
So the very confused person to my right is Anne Walker Farrell.
So excited.
This is awesome. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
So for you guys who do not know, why don't you tell our lovely audience what you do for a living?
Well, I am currently a director on the Netflix show BoJack Horseman.
So excited.
I've worked in animation since 2004. I worked in storyboards mostly, a little bit of design. But yeah, I've always loved cartoons, and now I get to make cartoons, and they pay me money to make cartoons, which is delightful.
So, what are we talking about today?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about characters.
Yes.
So characters. I guess why are characters important? You have this cool video game that you've got. You're making a film. You've got this amazing world. You've got this beautiful art. Why worry about the characters? Why think about the characters of your film, of your game? Characters are what we connect to.
They're like the representations of us.
Yeah,
it's where we see ourselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's a really great book, and this is more going into comics, but it's called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
Of course. Iconic.
And it's amazing. I read it when I was about 17, 18, and it changed my life. And one of the great things that it touches on is how we recognize human faces in everything, and we see ourselves everywhere. And so taking that to characters, like if we see ourselves in a character, we connect to that character and we're drawn into that story, and suddenly, we're not just watching somebody on screen, like that person's our friend, they're our family. And that's not to say that they have to be super complex and like tortured and like, think of, I don't know, when I was trying to put this together, I was thinking of the characters from like Undertale, from Zelda. Like I have seen so much Undertale and Zelda fan art from these, relatively simple characters, but it's simple and clear that we connect to on a deep emotional level.
Oh, absolutely. And even on a fiscal level too. I think it was Bob Iger who said it's like Disney is in the business of characters, and that's why he spends billions of dollars on IPs like Star Wars, is to buy the characters. It's not necessarily about the world or anything like that. It's for the characters to put in this like Disney pantheon of almost pop culture gods. So it's like the money is also with you and behind that.
Yeah, I mean, and thinking of it that way, it's like if you have a good world, you can tell a couple stories, but if you have a good character, you can like they will take you far. Well,
and I feel also like you can have an excellent character and then a very sparse world. You see that a lot in anime, where the characters anime are almost anime or whatever. I'm from Texas, so I'm almost at anime. You notice that a lot, especially in like the early 90s and mid 90s anime. They're super character driven, and then the backgrounds and these worlds are very kind of basic, and then you have almost like broad paint strokes for the background. Not artistically speaking, I mean like the world built in the imagination, broad strokes painted with that, and then the characters are what fleshes out the specific details instead of the other way around.
Exactly. I guess, so I wanted to talk a little bit, before we get into design, about what makes a good character. So I wanted to ask our audience out there, think about what characters you like, and think about what do you like about that character? What draws you to that character?
Maybe while we wait for like some more people to show up and some of those answers to filter in, maybe we could start with a little about you, the character that is Anne, and we can kind of delve into your path from like when you arrived in LA to like how you
because you're in your Bay Area, right?
We can dive into my characters. We wait for some more characters to appear. So
I love it.
Nice segue. Well done.
Well, I tried.
Nice. She's a host for a reason.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from the Bay Area. I came down to go to art school in 2001. I am the only artist in my family, so my parents were a little dubious, but they, like, all right, you want to do this, go. And so I went to Laguna College of Art and Design for 3 years, and Laguna was great. It was very far removed from LA, and I wasn't quite getting what I needed from the school. It was a good school. It just wasn't, I just wasn't getting to where I wanted to be. And so I decided, like, all right, well, maybe I'd had an internship, and I learned that one of the things I learned was that you don't necessarily have to finish school to get a job in animation. A lot of what you learn is on the job, and a lot of how you get that job just doesn't necessarily need a degree. It just depends on the strength of your portfolio. So I decided, all right, I'm going to spend the summer before my senior year getting this portfolio together, and if I can score a job before school starts, great. If not, I'll finish out school. It's no biggie. So I got a job at this little studio called Renegade in Glendale, and it was a 2-week job. And I said, yeah, I got a job.
Like,
See you later, still counts.
Yeah.
Woo! And there's a little, an Ann-shaped smoke cloud going up to LA. And looking back on it, I can't believe I did that. Like, it was at the time, it was exhilarating. Looking back on it, it's utterly terrifying, but it worked out.
What was the job, if you don't mind me getting
I was actually a character design, or no, a design assistant.
Great.
For one of the designers was working primarily in backgrounds on a show called Hi Hi Puffy Yummy Yumi.
Yes.
Oh, yes!
Wow.
So
that's old school.
The backgrounds were very stylized and flat, and it was interesting, like, coming into this with a lot of really talented designers with, like, a really old school, like, mid-century sensibility.
Absolutely. So it's like you did what some of our students struggle for a while to do, which is, like, break in. That was that first thing. Was that as a result of your internship, or pretty much just sending your portfolio around? What was that thing that got you into the studio?
Being a pain in the butt. In a good way.
Such good advice. Yeah,
in a good way. Definitely my internship was helpful. My internship in and itself did not net me a job, but I did learn a lot at the studio. So when that internship wrapped, I put together a portfolio and just started sending it everywhere. And this was back in the day before online submissions. I had like a plastic binder from Staples, and I'm knocking, like, I would drive up to LA and, like, literally, like, show up at the studio, like, here's my portfolio, like, thanks. And I just went everywhere I could think of, and I just didn't stop until I got a job. And it's,
if you don't mind me asking, how many places do you think you applied to? I know it was a while ago.
I applied at Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. I think I gave my portfolio to DreamWorks. Like, there was stuff online at Warner Brothers I applied to. I know Renegade, and I forget. I'm trying to remember how I heard about Renegade, and I cannot remember. It may have been somebody at Cartoon Network who told me about Renegade.
Oh, okay.
In which case, yes, the internship did help me get the job indirectly.
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic to know also that you were applying so many places. My students, that it was about the work. It wasn't about necessarily the brick and mortar building that you were doing it in.
And especially now, with online submissions, like, you can just, be like, you have not so much Tumblr anymore, but like Twitter, Instagram. You have a platform, Reddit. You have a platform to critique your portfolio, to get feedback from other artists. You can apply to all these places online. Like, you can submit your stuff very easily to these studios, and the more places you can apply to, the better. Like, just and even, I guess this is kind of a strange caveat, but even if you don't think that you're necessarily, like, because you're never going to feel like, for me personally as an artist, I always struggle with feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like,
absolutely. You're a fraud and everybody's going to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. It doesn't go away. But yeah, even if you feel like you're not good enough, submit anyway. Like, I have told so many people, like, no, just submit it. Like, the worst they can do is say you're not ready for this yet, and you won't hear back.
Yeah.
Like, it just takes persistence, and it's frustrating. And I remember, like, when I got that, I was in the car when I got the call from Renegade saying you want to come in for 2 weeks and help, and I remember just crying in my car. Oh my god, I can't believe it. And it really is a magical industry.
Yeah.
I don't know. It takes a lot of work and a lot of, you know, it takes persistence to break in, but it is, you know, just keep at it, keep drawing, keep submitting, and keep pressing send in those applications.
Yeah. Wonderful. I am excited to like hear the story from Renegade to BoJack Horseman, but I think we have some submissions now.
Yeah, we do.
I want to talk about characters a little bit more.
Avarost says they like Danny Phantom a lot. They think that it was the hair and eyes that are strong parts of his design. And Shirtle says one of the favorite characters is Squirt from Finding Nemo. Not a huge part, but still one of my favorite scenes. Another great character was Emile from Ratatouille. I'm a big Pixar fan.
What about at the table? What are some of your characters?
Oh my gosh. So I and like it's so funny. Y'all are gonna laugh because like whatever. Shut
Probably.
up. I love the character of Jinx. In League of Legends.
Oh,
I think she's great because she's so Jason producer I love her. Titans, I like Harrison Ford's characters that he plays. He has a calm demeanor in foreign locations and tough situations, dealing with people from all over, both good and bad.
Getting more
what about you?
Nuanced. If I was going at like character design, I hate to go with like a classic, but Maleficent is so good, and I absolutely love Maleficent. And Ursula, I think Ursula's is a fantastic design. It does, and especially the transformation where she goes like at the beginning. I mean, obviously we know she's going to be evil because it's a Disney movie, but seeing her at the beginning where it's all those round shapes and like she's like, oh, just this good, whimsical, helpful person, and then her transform and like see all like the triangles come out in the tentacles. I love Ursula.
She's got this confidence that's so fabulous.
Yeah.
Like, even though she's a villain, like she just like I say this as a proud Slytherin. We had a discussion about this earlier. This fist in the air. But I don't know. There's something that I know. Like she has this great. Like you almost want to root for her a little.
Absolutely.
Like it's you know she has this great, and that's I guess one of the things I'll get into in a bit. But definitely like characters who are active, who are motivated, who are opinionated, like who care about something.
What about you, Anne? What are your characters? What are your go-to characters? Or even growing up, what were your characters that you obsessed over and you drew over and over again?
Man. I used to really like Rocco's Modern Life.
Modern Life.
Terrified me.
Modern Life.
We should not have had that. Like that and Ren and Stimpy.
Yes, oh my God.
We should never have watched Ren and Stimpy as a child. Like that explains so much.
That's where we all went wrong. I remember like I always thought the three like Rocco and Filbert and Heifer were really, really funny, and I thought they were funny. They were funny together. Like there was something like they each brought a different aspect to the group. Like Rocco was sort of the sensible one who's kind of nervous, and then like Filbert's the smart one who's a little, you know, like he's kind of scared, and then Heifer's just this big lovable idiot, and something magical happened when they all came together. Like I used to laugh my butt off as a 10-year-old. Just it was awesome. I shouldn't have been watching any of it, but it was.
I saw on your bio that you did a pilot. That was that. You want to talk us through that process, because we have a lot of students kind of coming out and wondering if they should like aim their thesis kind of like a pilot.
Yeah, so after I started at Renegade, I was doing boards for a couple of years, and I was also pitching. I had my own show idea, and I ended up pitching to Nickelodeon had a program called Random Cartoons that was sort of the descendant of their Cartoons pilot program. And there were, I think, 39 original shorts. And so I pitched to them, and I got commissioned to do a 7-minute short cartoon called Mind the Kitty, which was the story of these three kind of hapless babysitters who get locked out by a evil kitten they're watching. And it was cool. I was very young. I think looking back, God, how old was I? I was like 22, 23. Wow. Like I was too, honestly, looking back, I'm happy for the opportunity. I kind of wish I had been a little older and more mature, I guess, in my, as artists and as filmmakers, our voices are always sort of developing. And while I'm glad that I had that opportunity to make it, there are a lot of things I would do differently with it now. Yeah. But when I showed up and pitched, I was super nervous, and my board was like ridiculously long, and it kind of didn't make sense. And I remember it was Eric Homan and Larry Huber and there's somebody else in the room. It was the 3 execs from Frederator and from Nickelodeon, and they were honest. They were like, this doesn't make sense. Why is there a popsicle? I don't. And it was a rough pitch.
Wow, did you jump right into a story pitch, or was there like something before where you were showing treatment or characters or a Bible? Or just like straight story.
That was how you did. I mean, I came in and met with Eric Homan. It was sort of like a meet and greet because he didn't know who I was, and I met with him and I talked a little bit about what I was playing, and he's like, all right, well, we can set up a pitch.
Oh, that's great.
And so my friend Melissa Moss was in the room. She was Melissa Wolf back then, and she and I actually ended up doing another pilot together called Sparkles and Gloom, which
that's fun.
she wrote. Yeah. But so, I was in the room, and it was a rough pitch, and I remembered leaving just feeling like, oh God, it was so bad.
Yes.
Well, literally
everybody has those
every
pitches.
creative
Everybody
field
has
ever.
those pitches. Yeah.
Or auditions,
Sure.
like anything.
You will have many of them.
Yeah.
It's why I look dead inside.
Yeah.
No, I spent a couple days sulking, and then it was like, it was like my movie montage moment. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. They'll see. I'll show them how good I can be. And so I redid the board and I pitched it again, and they were impressed. I guess they liked it.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was, it was magical. And working on My Kitty, and then Melissa and I met, and she had this idea for a short about these two little girls who their parents are an evil witch and Prince Charming. And so that was Sparkles and Gloom. And so she was like, do you want to help me make art for this and kind of craft this world with me? And that was my first experience creating with another person and working on those characters and watching them become real was just magical. Like it happens, I don't know, it happens a lot of times I find when I'm writing stuff, like I won't know the character that well initially, and this as I'm drawing them, as I'm writing them, as I'm thinking about them, you just sort of like mentally spend time with them. It's sort of they come together in your mind, almost outside of your control, which is super cool.
We have a really good question just on this topic, especially while we're talking about pitching and stuff like that. It's like when you start or when you're developing a story or a character, do you start with the character or the world? I have feelings where you go, or does it depend?
I think it depends. I think if you're
Titans asked the question.
I think if hello Titans, starting with either, I think works. I think if whichever one you start with, it's just the onus is on you just to make sure you're not neglecting the other one, because they do go hand in hand. I think like if you have an idea for this cool world, that's awesome. Who lives in that world? What do they do? Like what are their hopes and dreams? Why are they in this world? What do they hope to accomplish? And on the flip side of that too, if you're coming up with a character first, who is this character? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their flaws? What are their conflicts? What do they have a nervous twitch when they're, do they touch their hair when they're nervous? Do you find it medium dependent at all? Because I know you also do comics. Do you find that the approach is different? I mean, for myself, it depends. Usually, it's the comic that I'm working on now is based on a story that I wrote when I was like 17, and it's a different story now, and to be perfectly honest, I forget where I came up with it and whether it was the character or the story first. But a lot of times it'll I'll see a scene or an image, character doing something, character, reacting to something, saying something, and it's from there, it's, I'll sort of start thinking about it and like, who is this character? Why are they doing this? What are they doing in this scene? Why is it like this? And from there, working outwards in both directions, kind of thinking about the character and the world in tandem.
So what we're doing tonight is basically in that same vein where you're wanting to talk about your process on just developing characters in general, right? Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, my personal preferences, just what I think makes a good character. We touched on some of it already. And as I mentioned on my Twitter,
have my tarot cards. So, I can chat for a couple minutes, and then maybe we can go in and do a little demo and make a character of our own.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Titans wants to know, how much do you base your characters on real life?
That's a tricky one, because it's ultimately, like, I think a lot of what we create is based on what we experience. You know, they always say, like, write what you know best. And your own personal experiences, especially if you're not an experienced writer, are going to be more nuanced and more real, just because you've experienced these things, and so you have a lot of the emotional ins and outs of what happened. I find that I sometimes draw from people I know, but I never outwardly this character is named my husband's name is Chuck. This character is named Duck Farrell, and my husband's in the Army, in the Navy. Like, it's I never just outwardly take a person from life and this is a character. But sometimes I'll use traits of Chuck's, or traits from my friends, or stuff like that, little bits and pieces.
Yeah, because I feel like everybody has some friend or some where there's you're just like, that person's a character.
When you're making this character, especially if you have built the world, does the character belong in the world? If your world is trending dark, maybe a silly character might be a little out of place. Maybe and likewise, if you're making a silly Rocko's Modern Life, Nick 2's Hued World, maybe dark tortured Batman is going to be a little, unless you play him really hammy and silly.
Yeah, you satirize him the whole time.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that I gravitate, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, that I gravitate towards characters is nobody's 100% good and nobody's 100% evil. And so when I see characters like that, it bumps me. I get annoyed. And I like seeing, I like seeing villains who are redeemable in some small sense. I like seeing heroes who are not completely, goody two-shoes, like you said. I think it's because we're flawed as people. So when you see a character with I had a great teacher, this guy Marshall Vandruff, who I think he teaches at Fullerton now. I think he's still teaching. He might be retired, but he was a phenomenal teacher, and he said that in these flaws we see ourselves in these flaws, and we don't see each other as we don't see ourselves as perfect people. So when we see this flawed character, we zero in on that.
Yeah.
And we're drawn to it, and especially with kids shows too. I see that sometimes where the evil characters are 100% bad, and it. As a kid, that bugged me too. It's kids see more than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I love, the Harry Potter universe, is it's full of characters like Severus Snape.
Super nuanced.
Yeah. And, even Harry himself, it's nobody is an angel or a demon. Everyone's mixed, just like in real life. And I find that fascinating. Even in a complex world, Chihiro in Spirited Away is in this wildly complex, crazy, beautiful world. She's the one moving her story forward.
Yeah, she has agency. You're right.
Yeah.
Where anybody else in that world, they'd just be like, oh, let's have this crazy world happen to the character.
Yeah.
Almost make it more Alice in Wonderland. And they avoided that. Yeah, right. They didn't think of it that way. I see that a lot in Miyazaki's films, where it's, you do have these crazy, fantastical worlds, but the characters are very much, as you said, they have agency. They're the ones making the choices to move themselves through. I think also conflict, internal conflict and external conflict. Think of Arthur Dent in Hitchhiker's Guide. He's the external conflict he faces is literally everything. The internal conflict is, he's afraid of the unknown. Yeah. Throwing your character up against obstacles, you put them up in a tree and you throw things at them. Basically ruin their day. Makes it fun.
So what is your, I guess because we have I think we're like 55 minutes now.
So we should maybe
let's
bust
start
out
adding
some
in.
tarot.
What is the purpose of your tarot cards?
So, this is when you're coming up with a character, this is a way, just an example of how to build a character and their backstory if you're, so what I'm going to suggest is maybe if our audience or you guys can, like a name, maybe an occupation, and an age. All right, guys. Like a gender.
I'm going to go, you guys get to name it. You can think of an occupation, and I will think of an age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm just gonna start saying occupations then.
Go.
We'll do Undertaker. Clam diver.
Clam diver.
Yeah.
I like clam diver. We're going with clam diver.
Are we just stopping at clam diver?
Okay. So clam diver. I want them to be very young. I want it to be like a little, like a young child, like 6, 7, like Moana age, something like that.
Do you see male, female, non-binary?
I see a boy. I see a little boy.
Okay. 6.
And Avaros says Murphy. So this is a little boy named Murphy who is a clam diver.
Okay. All right. So what I am going to do is bust out my tarot cards from a mysterious store named Barnes & Noble, where I bought them. All right, so we're going to think about Murphy. Murphy, our 6-year-old clam diver, diving for delicious clams. So what I'm going to do, here, I'm going to have, let's see, split these tarot cards up. Gina, pick a pile.
I want this giant pile.
Okay, take that. Matt, pick a pile.
Oh, I get to pick one too.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Everybody, pick a card from your tarot pile and set it in the middle of the magical 4 dots.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
The devil.
Oh, perfect.
Of course you would pick that card. Matthew.
So, this is interesting. So what we do is we can kind of, based on what these cards read, we can sort of come up with some ideas about who Murphy is.
So we have King of Rods.
So rods, and I know a little about tarot. My main reference is my little magical book. I know that rods symbolize growth, which is interesting. Growth and like new ideas and like youth to a certain degree. Let's see what the King of Rods has to say.
This is exciting.
I like this a lot.
So the King of Rods.
The King of Rods is depicted with the lion rampant on his back. He has the strength to back up his ideas and vision. This self-starter can rarely sit still. Honest and dependable, a natural leader and man of action.
Okay. So Murphy's a boy of action.
I mean, technically that was reversed, wasn't it?
We could do it camera direction.
But okay, so if we had drawn it reversed, it would mean something else. But anyway, so strength to back up his ideas and vision. A self-starter rarely can sit still, so that definitely matches a 6 and 7-year-old boy.
I like ideas and vision. He's disrupting the clam diving world. He's coming in with these new clam diving ideas. What about diving for oysters, guys?
Maybe he's an inventor. Maybe he's got a clam diving machine.
Yeah, ooh, that's fun.
He's trying to retrofit the boat.
He's like, yeah. What am I?
The 4 of Rods. This is another.
You don't have to do a voice.
Where am I doing?
You should do a voice. You're reading the 4 of Rods.
Oh, I hear. All right. I'm not going to do a voice. Lovely floral arch joins the flowering rods. This can signify the joining of 2 families in marriage. The partnership will benefit everyone involved. Peace and harmony have been restored.
So does Murphy have an older sister who's getting married? Is Murphy
two rival clam families?
The
Montagues and the Clamulets.
The Clamulets. Oh well, now we have to do it.
So we have the devil.
Oh, the devil. Are you gonna do a voice?
Oh yes.
She says yes.
Associated with Capricorn, the goat. A tethered couple looks away in misery under the devil's yoke.
Sounds legit.
Represents emotional, spiritual, physical bondage, superficial attachments, or relationships based on material gain. These chains can be broken with willpower. can also relate to deviant sexual tendencies or cults. Ugh.
And we didn't have any reverses.
No.
Actually, this. So I'm sorry, but this is awesome. So he sees his sister's fiance cheating on her. He's kissing the. What's another? There's another. I don't know.
The oyster clan.
Yeah, the oyster clan.
Clams versus oysters.
Saying oyster magnate.
Yeah, so
emotional, spiritual, physical bond. So if he's if he feels trapped by his clam diver life. Yeah, so does Murphy see his sister's his sister's affair with the oyster magnet as something like, how does that relate to him?
What if he really wants to be? No, she doesn't. He sees the sister kissing like something totally unrelated, like some guy who's like a tailor or something, and Murphy wants to be out of the business because he doesn't like diving for clams. So
that's where the bondage comes from.
He sees their love as like a way for him to get out of the clamming business, because then he's like, oh, I could go and work for my brother-in-law as a tailor.
So he's trying to break up her engagement
Arranged
with her
marriage.
betrothal to the
which is just an
clangulets.
arranged marriage. Like nobody like there's no love.
And if the tenuous the tenuous truce between the Clamulets and Montagues fails,
We need a word for
all is
Montagues.
lost.
5 points for anybody who can come up with a really
mollusks.
bad molluscus.
Molluscus.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you get five points.
5 points. 5 points, Jason. 5 points.
So let's draw this guy. Let's draw Murphy.
Okay.
That's what kind of style is this? Like a funny, like I picture this as like an animated feature, like idea. Like maybe
I
it's
see
funny,
them
Sure.
I see them kind of like in the style of like
What
Lilo.
does the chat think? Need to
Done.
see an evil clam, I guess.
Yes.
Done.
I feel like Lilo and Stitch, where there was comedy, but it was still a realistic and a very heavy style of animation. In that, like, everybody looked heavy. If you think about it, like everybody was built very blocky,
Sure.
Yeah.
but still
Really
childlike.
Yeah, it had a warm roundness to it.
Yeah.
Avarice says
Murphy.
Murphy was named from a very, very fluffy dog that they saw at work today.
Nice.
In case we know.
Yeah.
So maybe Murphy can have like crazy big hair.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, that's fun. And then it just floats on the water. He has a hard time diving. That's why he needs to invent. I love it.
Yeah, rounded
that's so
shapes.
cool.
Kids are hard to draw, man. Kids are a challenge to draw and I could get into an entire course, and like character design is there's so much to it, and it's kids especially, like kids proportions are weird and alien. Like their eyes are like 3/4 down their face, and especially babies too. Babies are weird.
When you're kind of starting with the character, do you start with the shape language? Like I heard you talking about really rounded shapes. Let's go for that. Or do you start with the definable feature? Because once we said hair, you're like, oh yeah, let's really dive into this hair.
Yeah, sometimes a feature, a touchstone helps for me. Sometimes, like if I'm starting from scratch, it helps me just to know. I mean, usually I'll try and get a jumping off point of like what style, if I'm doing it for a client, like what style the client is looking for. And sometimes they'll have like they'll have some samples that they show me, like, oh, we're looking for like a Pixar style, or, oh, Lilo and Stitch. And then just having a visual jumping off point helps. My own style is pretty, pretty rounded and cartoony, I think.
At what stage is, like, I don't know anything about animation. You guys know this. Mm-hmm. Do they say, here's the script, animate to this? Or do they say, here's a character breakdown? Or we don't know anything about it. We just have a general idea of, we know that it's a warring family of a clam and an oyster shipper.
It depends. I've done... Because I was thinking about that, because with BoJack it is script based. It's all script. And so when we get the script, we read it and sort of go from there.
So when we're looking now, working on kind of this character of a boy, do you look for, like, I see him, he's kind of, this is just like generically standing there.
Yeah.
This is him kind of doing a thing, and he's in action. He's playing with a spear. Do you do this to try and give yourself a sense of his personality, like to find his personality?
Definitely, and it's a lot of rough doodling of just sort of vague, thoughtful faces, vague, sad faces. Like, what is he thinking? What is he doing? What is he? What makes this character tick? Like, what, is he having a think?
He's having a think.
Yeah.
He's doing a thought.
He's doing a thinking.
So you went from revisionist. Did you go revisionist, storyboard artist, and then to director? Do you want to about that path?
I started. So I started as a board revisionist, and I had just come from a year of doing just revisions, sort of like wondering whether or not I wanted to stay in animation.
Oh, okay.
Like, I was really, I was sort of drifting. Like, I'd been in the industry 10 years and I wasn't getting to where I needed to be. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And Mike Hollingsworth, the supervising director, I actually worked with him at Renegade way back in the day.
Wow.
All of your
Bringing
jobs will
Yeah.
come from previous jobs. So be nice to people.
Work begets work.
Yes, do not be a jerk. Is the lesson here. So Mike emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm working on the show called BoJack." That was a weird looking child.
You're a little potbelly.
We're gonna. Why?
Man.
We're gonna move on to a next page. So yeah, Mike brought me on as a revisionist, and I did revisions my first year, and I did okay, and I liked the show. So I came back season 2 as a board artist, and they made me the lead animator for the animation segment, which was nice. So end of season 2, Mike called me into his office and was like, "Hey, so what do you want to do? Like, what's your career path?" And I at the time,
what a great question.
Like, my response was I don't know. And he said, "Well, I was thinking about having you be Amy Winfrey's assistant director for season 3." And Amy Winfrey was awesome. She was my director. She was my mentor. Like, she taught me so much about, like, not even just like animation, but also just how to direct an animation, how to lead a team, how to like, and I learned a ton from just watching like how she works and how she interacts with everyone and runs the show. So midway through season 3, I decided, I think I want to direct. I think I want to try and do this. And so I and this is the other thing I always tell people. I went around like systematically to everyone and was a jolly pain in the butt again. And I told my producers, "Hey, I want to direct." I told my supervising director, "Hey, I want to direct." I told Amy, I'm like, "I want to direct with you." She was like, "Cool. Like, let's make sure, people know about it." And I got, I was for season 4, I started out directing episode 402, The Old Sugarman Place, and was directing 2 more episodes on the condition that I did well on my first, and I did. And yeah, it's been, I guess if I had to give any advice, just be work real hard and be vocal, be kind, and be vocal about what you want. One of the things I learned about being on BoJack is just, you want to direct, tell people I want to direct. Even if you're not qualified yet, they'll tell, like, if I'm not qualified, tell me how I can direct. Like, I would like to direct. How can I do that?
How can I get there? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
we have some questions coming in. K-Chud says he wants to know, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, do you build the world for the characters or the characters for the world? And I think you said you take both into consideration. You have to take both into consideration because you can't have like the super bubbly character and like the DC universe. Yeah.
I mean, I've done a little bit of world building. I'm currently working on making a webcomic that I'm planning on dropping sometime next spring.
And she's gonna come back and she's gonna premiere that with
us. About it. It's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I'm
I'm so scared.
No, it's gonna be great.
So I've worked a little bit building that world, and it the webcomic was unique for me because I I had a friend of mine who I had been writing with previously and pitching, and he kind of helped me take this seed of an idea that I had as a kid, basically, and turn it into something that I was happy with as an adult. Because I was not going to, my 17-year-old story was hot garbage, as pretty much, all 17-year-old stories are. But yeah, I think, to a certain extent, I started with the world, and then I had, an idea of a story, like a story outline. But really, I think I found that it's a science fiction story, and I found that once, aside from a few major broad strokes about what the world was about, I think more of it kind of came into place as I got to know the characters and started drawing them and writing them and rewriting them and rewriting them. I think this thing went through about 5 rewrites before I finally started drawing pages. But yeah, I think for me, generally, I gravitate towards characters more. I'll start with characters or an image, something like that. I have friends who write who start more my friend Dan comes from a gaming background. When he writes, I think he starts a little bit more with the world, with where these characters live, and then from there he kind of figures out who these guys are and what they're doing. I think it depends on the writer, really, but for myself, mostly for me, it's I start with character and then kind of work outward from there.
Yeah, so that kind of answers Shirtle's question as well, as how much character design, up above that, character designs from just a writer's description. So it just depends. If you're, if you are the animator and the writer gives you a description, then you it's your little baby to build.
Yeah, and I've had some stuff where I've done freelance illustration for clients, or I was doing... A couple years ago, I was doing these little films for a children's educational YouTube channel, and I just got a song, and that was it. And it was and go nuts. And so you could kind of come up with, any sort of character. You could tell teach this lesson through song kind of any way you wanted to, in any kind of character style. I think... For me, I've never, working in production and TV production, you're never really just given, at least on BoJack, you're never just given a description and said, run with it. There are some board-driven shows that work like that, where you get an outline from the writers, you get more of a loose treatment, and it's kind of on you to build that world and to develop that character. Working with the writer's description, you have, having a touchstone that you can kind of go off of, this is a... you're reading the description and you can kind of picture this character in your head a little bit, and then you just start drawing, and as you draw, that character will come out of what, your doodles.
So I guess getting back then to what we're doing with Murphy, we have a general idea of what he looks like, maybe kind of an idea of his personality is starting to come out in... as you play with his sketches, as you play with kind of what you're doing with him. What is the next step with this?
I guess the next step would be determining what is Murphy's story that works. So he's breaking up this marriage to say, are you talking about in terms of going from sketch to final design, or
no? I mean in this right now. So right now we just have kind of an idea of he's a boy. He lives probably on an island somewhere. He's got this family. How do you start, without having a script for him, how do you start fleshing out this idea of expressions and reactions and all that?
Just by drawing him, really. I mean, for me, it's always been a really, I don't know, intuitive process. I'm doodling him, and I just kind of keep drawing him in various, situations and poses, and sort of trying to tell stories with the drawings. Is it, so I'm not just drawing him standing there. It's I start drawing him, and he's got this sort of traumatized expression. Why is he traumatized?
He just came in, he went from being Calvin and Hobbes, jumping into ta-da something, to being my God, what did I just see?
Yeah, maybe is he up against a box of, is he trying to hide a box of clams from somebody. And it's some of it's like most of these drawings are just like throwaway because there are like these are not beautiful finished drawings. These are who is Murphy, the 7-year-old clam diver, who is I figure he has this clam with a monocle now that's just his buddy.
Oh, that's fun.
Who helps him break up this wedding as he's
befriended him on some quest. The clam must have saved his life.
Yeah,
in some way.
Or he was fishing and the clam's like I can speak. I'm Sir Clamington. like Bodie McBoatface.
Sir Clamington of the clamlets.
Yeah.
The clamlets. Do you do most of your planning on paper? I've been trying to switch 100% to digital. That it's a process. What do the big kids play with?
A little of both. I mean, paper is good because you can bring it with you, like in your downtime. If you're just sitting around, waiting at the car wash, you're waiting wherever, you can sort of doodle and sketch. And it's for me. I know there are people who do the digital portable. Like for me, if it's portable, it's usually just paper. It's but when I'm at home, I do most of my stuff digital, just because it's easier. It's easier and quicker and like easier to save, and you can it's how I work 9+ hours a day on BoJack. So it's sort of instinctively that's usually where I go. But for the initial planning stages, it's a little of both.
I imagine you're working on a Cintiq.
Yes. Cintiq. We use Flash on BoJack, Flash and After Effects. For my comic, I do it in Photoshop. It's real simple. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm a little bit of a grandma when it comes to my technology. I don't know. I know there are people using like what is it, like Procreate and like all these cool there's the Cintiq, like it's a, what is it called? It's like a companion. It's like a computer and Cintiq.
Oh yeah,
in one,
it's like the Cintiq with the CPU in it. Yeah, they can actually drive it. Supposedly can run Maya, but
so Boots wants to know if you can talk anything about animation industry salaries, like intro salaries.
I am not in the union. BoJack is not a union show, so I'm not in the union currently. I have been in the union previously, working on union productions. Union has great benefits. The pay is generally a little higher. I would say, if you're coming here to try and find a job in animation, have money saved up. Have at least $5,000 to $7,000 saved up. As far as once you're working in the industry, it's definitely feast or famine. You're looking for work at least once a year. If you're freelancing, you're looking for it way more often than that. So you're sort of always hustling, and I sometimes find it exhilarating. It can oftentimes be exhausting and demoralizing, especially if you cannot, you can't find work, or you're just nothing's sticking. I think with animation, it's pretty much contract work.
Yeah.
You're on through the production, which, for BoJack is like 9-10 months, and then you're off work. And there's usually studios will be good about bringing back crews again and again, like if you do well and if they like you. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but most of the time it does. But you're still you're still out of work for however many months. As somebody who's currently on season 5 of BoJack, it's wonderful being on a show that lasts for multiple seasons, because it's job security. It's the closest we'll get to job security. I guess in my own opinion, for something like, if you work on a show for years and years and years, you can sometimes get bored with the style. You could feel like you want to, how we get our jobs through networking and through going out and meeting people and working at different studios and building a network of friends and colleagues. So I feel like somebody might feel like they were, they're at the studio for Simpsons for 10 years. Like maybe they want to branch out and try and work in a different style show, or, they want to work more in action, like working with people who have more action connections, or more of a, SpongeBob comedy. So yeah, it kind of depends on where your head's at, like how enthralled you are with what you're creating.
Yeah, and maybe we can talk. Well, I guess Titans comes with another question. What's the working attitude like at a studio? And I think it's a studio calm. Is it creative? Is it lots of yelling and screaming? All the above. And maybe you can juxtapose this. You were mentioning clients, so I imagine you've been freelance and you've been a one-woman studio. So maybe you can juxtapose those two things.
When it's just me, it's my coworkers are my 2 cats. They're great. Real mellow. They both like to give themselves face scratches on my Cintiq pen while I'm drawing. It's adorable and terrible. As far as Shadow Machine's great. The BoJack crew is really fun. At this point, it feels kind of like a big, messy family. And, we're all working really hard. We all love the show. It's definitely a treat to be in a studio at work with a bunch of just devoted, talented people. And definitely I've mostly worked at smaller studios. I was at Nickelodeon for when I did the pilot, but generally speaking, I've mostly been at smaller flash houses. And sometimes it's a little more like intense at the smaller places because you're contracting for a bigger client. So for example, I was working on a show called Good Vibes for MTV. It was a sweet little show. It lasted a season, and I was very sad because it was actually pretty funny and good. It's like we were all there were 50 some odd character artists and layout artists, and we were all just together in this giant room, working really hard to meet our deadlines. And there was definitely a lot of intensity, but it's never. I've never been in a studio. I've never been in a studio where it's felt mean or toxic or there's yelling and tempers we're all here because we love cartoons. We're at the end of the day, nobody's gonna die. We're making a cartoon, so it's there's definitely Jason laughs. It's I feel like it's a pretty good vibe. It's fun. It's we're there to work. We're getting our work done, but it's it's silly. It's awesome. Yeah. I love it.
You had mentioned earlier, you had mentioned something about kind of the women needing to speak up and minority maybe needing to speak up more. What's the landscape? Because I know from the video game side of the industry, the tech side of that, the industry landscape is changing. It's not like the good old boys club anymore. So what is that like in animation?
From my perspective, it's absolutely changing. I am on a crew where there are 2 female directors, a female production designer, Lisa Hannawalt. We have a lot of women on the BoJack design team, tons of women board artists. It's definitely does not feel like a boys club. It feels like a group of adult humans coming together to make a cartoon. I can't speak for the culture at other studios, but I think for me personally, I've definitely seen a change in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, because it seems like I feel like maybe some of our audience also we have persons of color in the audience as well, and I feel like again in gaming that's changing. There's a lot more you walk in and it's not just one, it's not homogenous anymore. You don't walk in the door and just expect to see one type of person.
Just to give some added stakes to speak to the animation program here, we're over 50% female.
Oh yeah, here it's crazy.
And international as well.
That's
we have a lot of international students. So and you were touching it earlier for advice for specifically the female students, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it other than speak up and put yourself out there other than that.
I know that as women we're generally trained to not really rock the boat, I guess, and as growing up and just starting out in the industry, it was really hard for me to speak up because it's not, you're new to it and it's unfamiliar and it's strange and kind of frightening. And as I've grown older, I've learned that it, just like in life, nobody will know what you want unless you tell them what you want.
They're not mind readers. It didn't work because the camera doesn't change fast. But I motioned to the tarot cards. It was hilarious.
They're not.
Take it again.
Mind readers.
That's up to Jason if he's done the thing. Poppy Sauté. What goes into directing animation? It's easy to envision the admittedly flawed caricature of a film director, but when the visuals take so much more effort to get to the second take? Yeah,
it was a live action film crew in my house for 4 days. And it was cool. It was I knew next to nothing about how live action films are made, and it was incredible watching, you know, the director and the assistant director like run this 3-ring circus of people. Everything is happening real time. Everything's dependent on, you know, the physicality of the space. Animation directing is a lot more planning. It's a lot more work at the forefront, but in comparison to live action, it's a lot less stressful. You definitely have deadlines that you have to meet, and sometimes those deadlines are tight. But because you can't really make changes after a certain point with animation, you sort of do more of your planning. You front load your planning. So, you know, I'll read the script, and I'll be reading the script all the time, and coming up with ideas with my assistant director and my storyboard team. Then we do a thumbnail pass, and so that gives the executives a chance to see kind of roughly where we're planning on what we're planning on doing with our storyboards. From there, we go to final boards, which adds a little more acting and detail, and then from there it goes to design and animation. So there's definitely a lot more. Because once the boards are approved, that's what's happening. Like, that's what's going to be on screen, and then from there, now we determine like what this character's final design and color is going to be, how they're going to sit against this background, and it's definitely hectic in its own way, but less real time hectic than live action, I think.
What are there any characters on BoJack that you are responsible for, like that you created that character, the look of the character, and all of that, or have you like jumped on board with everyone?
No, there are a couple times where I made suggestions in the room that went through. One was I think originally Yolanda Buenaventura. Who's a character in season 4. She was going to be a salamander, I think, and I pitched her as an axolotl because I don't know if you know, like they're these.
They have the gills.
Yeah, they've got these crazy like little horn. No, they're not horn. I think they're actually lungs. But yeah, then it was like that was basically my contribution. Was like, let's make it this crazy animal, and then Lisa was like, cool, and Lisa went and like made this amazing design of Yolanda. And our design team knocked it out of the park. This is the weirdest looking sort of axolotl. It's a terrible axolotl. That's a lot of axolotls. Yeah, but for the most part, design decisions come from Lisa. Lisa's responsible for the look of the show, so she's in charge of bringing a look to whoever's on screen.
Yeah, I think a lot of like animations, our animation story artists' first foray into the industry would be as a revisionist, or if they're very, very lucky, a board artist. Maybe can you talk about your relationships with your revisionist and board artist? Do you do any of the boarding on your shows, or is it just kind of them?
I do a little bit. There are some directors who thumbnail the entire thing start to finish, and I feel like that's sort of not utilizing the talent that you have. You know, you have these board artists here for a reason. You know, trust them to do their job. I have an assistant director and a team of like 2 other storyboard artists, and sometimes an extra. We call them floaters because they float from team to team,
Sure.
/ revisionist. So I read the script and I'm kind of bringing my own ideas to the table, and then I'll talk them over. I like talking them over with my assistant director, and then we'll kind of present them. After we present them to the execs and get the execs to sign off, we'll talk it over with the storyboard team. And that's something I learned from Amy. It was like this sort of collaboration really, like, because sometimes one of my board artists has a great idea that I didn't think of, or that, totally slipped my mind, or it's really funny, or a way to plus something. And I think, one of the really cool, unique things about BoJack is that sort of atmosphere of collaboration. So yeah, we'll come together as a group, and then I kind of just let my artists run with it. Usually with my assistant director, I'll ask him if he has any scenes he'd prefer to direct or prefer to storyboard, like if he's got something he's dying to draw. But yeah, it's a little, we're Team 4. We call ourselves Team Forte. We have fun.
So we have about 10 minutes left. So I want to throw it back into chat really quick because we have some awesome questions. Boots says, "What do you know roughly the LGBTQ percentage of the animation industry?" And then favorite resources for learning how to direct voices, and then. And then Avarice just laughing about you.
Oh my God, Avarice! Oh my gosh, I remember your axolotl. I remember enjoying your axolotl. That's what I thought of. Oh my goodness. Oh, the world is small and wonderful. I don't know the percentage of LGBTQ off the top of my head. Definitely, like, animation is really open and welcoming, and
I feel like there's a lot of counterculture in animation.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a lot of punk rockers. You've got, look at you with your pink hair. Like, running. Like,
it used to be red. It faded. It's definitely, I have met, I can count on one hand the number of jerks I've met in this industry. Like, everyone's pretty opening and welcoming and not, not prejudiced or weird. But yeah, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's, we're a cool mix of people, and we got all kinds.
What about Titans? Have any favorite resources for learning to direct voices?
I do not. I actually don't. I don't direct. I don't deal with the voice actors on BoJack. That's something that's very separate from the animation side. We do have a casting director, Linda Lee. I'm going to get her name wrong. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but she. Shadow Machine is 2 buildings, and the animation building and the voice actors / writers / execs building are separate. So we don't have a lot to do. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of resources on directing actors or voice actors. I'm sorry.
You direct the animation.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Do you get the voices and then you draw to the voices?
Yes, we get a voice track. We can edit it a little bit. We can add in time if we need a joke to land or if we need a particular emotional beat. But for the most part, it's, occasionally it'll be temp voices because they haven't gotten the final actor yet. We mostly just have, it's presented to us like, here's the final audio.
And then Westward had another really good question as well. Westward asked, what is the timeline like from beginning to end of an episode for you? Like, how long does that take to create one episode? From script to finish.
Let's see. Boards, like, script is usually 2 to 3 weeks. I get a week or 2 to look at it. So that's maybe like a month. And then I'd say like a month for boards. Be another month for design. Like, altogether, like 9-10 months usually.
For one episode?
Let's see. No, my math is wrong.
Like, just for the animation part of it, not the actual writing of the script or anything. Just from when you get the script.
I see.
And then to when you're finished animating that episode.
Okay, let me see. I think I got the script for 402 in September, and we delivered the final animation in like January, February.
Oh my gosh.
So it does take a while. It's a few months process for sure. The entire production it's like a school year. It starts in the fall. It generally wraps up in the mid to late summer.
Now, is it like a rotating thing where like this group is working on episode 2 or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when this one's done with 1, it starts 5, 6, 7. Oh, okay.
Precisely. Yeah, we have 4 teams, and we just go round robin and sometimes they'll shuffle it around a little bit, but usually
I'm going to ask just maybe some nuts and bolts questions for especially like our students that are about to graduate. Like, do you have representation, and how do you feel about representation in animation?
I have managers. I have a manager who helps me find work. At this moment, I'm not looking for work, so it's mostly he'll keep me alert of like different productions that might be hiring or what's kind of going on. He's very, very helpful. I do not make him any money. But it's definitely been super helpful to me to have just an experienced, like, somebody who knows the industry well and who can kind of advocate for me if I need them to, and then look out for me a little bit. I have mixed, as far as representation goes, I have mixed feelings. It's definitely helpful in some respects. I don't think it's totally necessary, at least not starting out. For animation, you know, all of my jobs really up until this point I found just through word of mouth and through, you know, people I know.
Yay! There's the dancing.
That's my dance. And then I do like an LJ thing, and I don't know where that comes from, but sorry.
Sure. When you did, man, this is fantastic.
This is what happens when you dance for people.
I don't know, since a lot of your work came from word of mouth, maybe you haven't had to do storyboard tests a whole bunch, or maybe you have. Okay,
I've done tests. I've never gotten jobs.
You guys.
Well, I was going to ask for advice on storyboard tests for our grads coming up, but
you know,
I don't know.
I've gotten exactly one job from a storyboard test that I can think of. I was on a show called Murder Police at Bento Box. It never aired. It was a great job, but the show never aired. I think that might have been the only time I got a job from a test. I'm trying to think.
Okay, you heard it here. Don't worry about the storyboard test.
Well, no, do good on the test, because even if they don't have a job for you, they keep your test on file.
Yeah.
Blowing up.
You guys are awesome. I'm sorry, dance.
I'm dancing too. I'm one of the crowd.
We are. Okay, so sorry. Let's do. So the storyboard.
So maybe we can
story testing. Yeah, because I want to get to their questions as well.
Yeah.
Titans, is there much crossover between comics and animation? KChad90, how do you deal with writer's block or obstacles in your creative flow? And we have 3 minutes left, so this is probably going to be the last questions, guys.
Okay, crossover between comics and animation. I do know a lot of animation people who have their own webcomic. I think comics are a great avenue, especially webcomics, to tell your own story sort of outside of the studio system and with comparatively less work than animating it on your own. I know for myself personally, like, I would not be able to tell the story I'm telling in animation. It would bankrupt me and I would die.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely I see a little bit of crossover with people telling their own stories in comics. Writer's block and obstacles in your creative flow. I've actually been dealing with that.
Well, tarot cards.
Yeah, I mean, tarot cards are great.
This is what we were doing. I don't know if the camera can switch onto it or not, but this is what we were doing. We were using these tarot cards to make Murphy the Clam Diver. That's my song.
Yes.
It's
a good song.
Oh yeah, let's show Murphy.
Oh yeah.
This is Murphy. This is Murphy, our clam diver.
And Clammy McClamington.
Clammy McClamington of the Clamulets.
The Clamulets.
These were kind of some of the... Anyway, okay, so writer's block.
Yeah, definitely using things like tarot cards. Also just writing sort of stream of consciousness, because usually I find that if I have writer's block or if I've been struggling with it, there's something else that's taking up, bandwidth in my mind that I need to get out before I can start thinking about stories, especially like if you feel pressure to come up with something. It's like, box face, I have to go. So it's definitely a challenge, but yeah, just free form writing, tarot cards, taking long walks, listening to music.
We talked about rolling characters like in Dungeons and Dragons. You can roll stats for a character that you're trying to write up.
Deadlines also, to just echo something. If you are like nothing like, set a deadline for yourself, or something awful happens and you'll get it done.
Yeah, figure it out. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up because this has been amazing. Thank you, Anne.
Yes, Anne,
thank you so much.
You so much.